Hey everybody, Matt Colville here. We played D&D last week, and we are going to play tonight. There's a link in the doobly-doo to our Twitch stream. In just a few hours, we'll get to find out what happens with the Mind Killer. If you don't know what I'm talking about, spoilers, this is the campaign diary where we talk about what happened last week and a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. And if you want to get that kind of behind-the-scenes dope early, I recommend our Patreon. There's a link in the doobly-doo where I post my notes for the coming session each week that kind of reveals some of my thinking. I know it seems like the campaign diaries have taken over the channel, and I guess from a purely pragmatic, YouTube video cadence, they have, but we're working on tons of stuff here behind the scenes, including a bunch of running the game videos that I'm really excited about. And the Kingdoms and Warfare Kickstarter, which is coming up. If you want to get an alert when the Kingdoms and Warfare Kickstarter goes live, there is a link in the doobly-doo. We'll send you one email only, Vasily, to, we're not going to spam you or anything like that. Your email is safe. It's not going to get sold to anybody. It's literally just an email for you to get an alert when the Kickstarter goes live. So session is one, I think it's probably the second session we've had. The first one being the one where the players were going to try and escape the library out from under the nose of 12 dragons, where I honestly thought we might see, I don't think a TPK is the right word, but a sort of rebellion on the part of the players where they just say, I'm tired of putting up with this nonsense. This isn't fun. I'm not having fun. That kind of rebellion, that kind of like everyone's interest in the game just collapsing because I have maneuvered them into a scenario with no good answer, and they don't like that. So I was ready for some catastrophic failure this week for the second time in the campaign, and for the second time in the campaign, my players completely surprised me. I had a blast. I thought it was a really cool episode with a lot of dope stuff that happened. However, if you go back and watch the Twitch stream, if you just scrub through it, it's a whole bunch of 6 or 7 people sitting around the table, not saying anything as the players are frustrated, thinking, trying to weigh their options. And so, I mean, if you could cut all that out and just edit it down to what actually happened, I think it'd be really cool. And like I said, in the moment, it was pretty cool. When last we left our heroes, Lady Arozavar, a Knight of the Falling Star, a very small order of knights. There are only 4 of them, but they work for the church, House Navarre, the Bishop of St. Isabella, who's one of the most powerful people in the city. So they're not necessarily somebody you want to piss off. She had on her own accord, on her own recognizance, found Ringwell just following this trail of crime and suspicion. She didn't know what it was. She just knew that these villains were down here wreaking havoc, and she wanted to stop them. And King, the week before, in an attempt to just gain her trust, was honest with her and said, it's Ringwell. This is where the wards of the last emperor are stored. We're trying to recover them so we can stop Ajax. We need you to help us. And she, being somewhat overwhelmed by all of this, is like, I'm just going to go back to the church and tell my boss what's going on and let him figure out what to do about all this. And the players started to realize slowly that if Lady Arozavar leaves Ringwell, the world outside will find out about what is going on here, and they are going to want in. All the different factions of Capital are all going to want a chunk of what's down here. They're going to want to control it. They're certainly not going to want a bunch of mercenaries to control it, but the players didn't realize that when they met Lady Arozavar. They only realized that some hours later when the discussion of what to do about her started to come up, and the players started to go, oh, I don't think we can let her leave. So I think the course of Lady Arozavar's subplot could have gone pretty much any way the players wanted it to go if they had started dealing with the problem as soon as Lady Arozavar showed up. When the ship leaves port, a very, very tiny change in your heading can produce wildly different outcomes once you've gotten across the ocean. But having waited till very much the last minute, the players are now in an abandoned candlemaker's shop, which is next to the abandoned butcher's shop that they have kind of taken over, and Angel and his agents are now running and making it look like a regular everyday going concern that doesn't have anything to do with the chain of Acheron. This is part of the front. They don't want folks to know that Ringwell's down here. I'm sure there's an abandoned baker's shop around here somewhere. The candlemaker's shop is another abandoned building that has an entrance that was made by Angel and his team down into the tunnels that lead to Ringwell. But unlike the butcher's shop, the candlemaker's shop has a side exit that leads to an alley. So the commanding officers of the chain of Acheron can come and go, and it won't necessarily link to the butcher's shop. And this is just part of the complex nature of trying to keep Ringwell secret. Lady Arozavar, the players just want to rest there, but Lady Arozavar is like, I'm leaving. I'm going to go tell the church what's going on here. I'm going to do my duty. And Slim, this is what happened 2 weeks ago when last we left our hero, Slim puts his hand on the door, keeping it shut, and says, you can't leave. At that point, Lady Rosevar was basically going to either walk out the door or die fighting the Chain of Acheron, because she's not stupid. She knows what Slim means. She can't be persuaded that she doesn't know what she knows. And she looked at King. This is the last one of the last lines of dialogue from the previous session. And the way I opened last week's session was her looking at King and saying, for a moment, because she was caught up in this religious zeal and this desire to stop the Black Iron Pact, she didn't really pay attention to the Chain of Acheron. She says, for a moment, I was ashamed that I didn't trust you. But I was right not to trust you, wasn't I? And this gets down to my philosophy of role-playing, and what makes good role-playing is that I just know who Lady Rosevar is, right? I have a three-dimensional view of her attitude and personality, and as a result, I can improvise lines of dialogue like that. That wasn't written down anywhere. That was just this thing that happened in the moment that I was really happy with, and there were a couple of instances of that, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm laying the foundation for the Running the Game video on role-playing that we're going to be doing soon. So yeah, that was a nice line of dialogue that I think kind of conveyed Lady Rosevar's attitude toward this whole thing. And King gives a speech, which Lars had written just like, after they spent a week trying to figure out what do we do about Lady Rosevar. King, at the very much at the last moment, Lars wrote a speech where he's going to try and convince Lady Rosevar not to go tell her bosses. This was folly, I think, ultimately. I think that so it didn't work, but stay tuned. We'll talk about why. Because, like I said, my attitude was, these are mercenaries. She knows that. And Slim has made it clear that she's not going to be able to leave this place alive. There was some discussion the week before about, waiting some period of time before they let her go. And she realizes there's no period of time is going to make this okay. They're going to kill me because of what I know. The reason Lars's fine speech, even though he rolled really well, didn't work is because he was trying to convince her of something she can't be convinced of. A speech and a skill roll aren't mind control, although I think some players, I've seen this online in other games and on Reddit, some people definitely want to treat their skills as supernatural abilities that they can use to manipulate NPCs as though this were a video game, and if I just press the right button, I'll get the result that I want. But Lady Rosevar is a knight of the church, and this ground state is very close to zero. I don't know how much distance there is between where this is a very close to zero local minimum, where she's like, I'm just going to go talk to, who cares what's going on here? Your speech doesn't mean anything to me because you're trying to convince me not to just go tell my boss, I'm a knight of the church, I don't work for you folks. Even if everything you say is correct, why wouldn't I just go talk to my boss and have them deal with it, have the Knights of the Falling Star deal with it? So my setup, my belief at the beginning of the session was either Lady Rosevar is going to walk out of here or there's going to be a fight. And I was ready, I was very close to just saying, start the stream and saying roll initiative because of what had happened last week. And I'd statted out Lady Rosevar. You can check that out. I posted on Twitter. It's on the Patreon. It was really the only notes I did for this week because I was going to continue using the work I've prepped thus far. I just needed to know, how does Lady Rosevar work? And so I used the same method I used for the Black Iron Pact, where I'm not concerned with the rules in the monster manual for making villains, or indeed really the presentation in the monster manual for monsters. I'm more interested in the action economy. What can Lady Rosevar do on her turn? How many turns is she going to live? What are her actions she has access to? Her bonus actions, her reactions, and let's give her a legendary action. I call it a hero action, because I really think in any kind of scenario where the players grossly outnumber the enemies need to start acting on the hero's turns as well. And I was really looking forward to using Lady Rosevar's stat block, but even though I thought there were only two options, one, she leaves, or two, there's a fight, Lars's speech created a third option, which is I'm going to sit here and listen to you for a little while, and I'm going to try to talk to you about this. And so that, to me, was success. Lars, I don't think Lars liked that. I think Lars was really frustrated. I've had this happen before where the players feel like if my idea is good enough, if I believe in my idea enough, then you should let it work. And I often let the players' crazy ideas work because I'm excited by them and I think they're really cool. But in this instance, the scenario as it stood was not one that King could talk the chain out of. He tried to persuade Lady Rosevar that if she tells the church about what's going on down here, there's going to be a war and it'll be her responsibility. That's not true. That's just not true. Like, if there is a war, it's not going to be because of Lady Rosevar. It's going to be because of Ringwell. It's going to be because of all the power that's down here. And that they try to convince her something with Lady Violentia, the woman trapped behind the prismatic wall. And she's like, why do you care about this woman? Let's imagine that she's important. I guarantee you someone in the church, maybe not a Knight of the Falling Star, somebody in the church is going to be able to get her out of there. So I'll just go talk to my bosses and let them sort it out. So yeah, Lars was frustrated, but I was actually surprised because I thought this is, you've got an opportunity to talk to her. What are you going to say? And I don't really think there was an outcome other than let her go or kill her. Talk to her for a little while was a third outcome, but it didn't really lead anywhere because at the end of the day, they don't have a good argument. The players do not have a good argument for a knight of the church suddenly switching allegiance is basically what Lars is trying to get her to do and become a member of the chain. Take King's orders. And she explicitly said, I am not one of your mercenaries. You can't command me. And this gets back to what we said last week about how players don't like it when they meet NPCs that can't be controlled like it's a video game. So yeah, Lady Rosevar leaves. And at this point, the players are like, now what do we do? Angel shows up. Angel is the halfling assassin retainer and the head of the first spy in their spy organization. Boots is the head of the spy organization. And Angel shows up and is like, hey, what are you folks doing here? Why aren't you back at the minstrel? And so King explains what's going on, and Angel views Lady Rosevar leaving as a problem, but he wasn't here when the problem was trying to resolve itself. So he's like, what do you want me to do, boss? You want me to kill her? I can assassinate her. I can assassinate her and make it look like an accident. And the players now, this ended up being the crux of the session. Angel, and remember, those of you who've been watching my content for a long time, and Anna keyed off this very quickly. Those of you who've been watching my content for a long time know that I like playing NPC allies of the heroes who make suggestions that are dangerous, sometimes ridiculous, because I don't want the players to assume that if an NPC is talking, that it's really Matt trying to tell them something. So when Angel's like, boss, what do you want me to do? Say the word. At this point now, the players are like, okay, we do have a spy network that we paid a lot of money for, that Angel is in charge of. We can make an espionage check, which I explained how an espionage check is going to work. But what do we want to do? And Lars said, quite rightly, remember how espionage works. If we fail badly enough, they know that someone tried to assassinate Lady Rosevar, and they know it was us. We could lose Angel. We could lose our spy network. That is all true. Angel responded by saying, it won't be me. They may catch our agent, but it's not going to be me that takes care of it. And so they were like, okay, well, let's talk about what, if anything, do we want our spy network to do? Angel wants to know what the hell's going on in Ringwell. I almost said Night Below. Angel says, what's going on in Ringwell? Who's this knight? And King's like, before we explain all this, Copper, we need you to go get Marcellus Scipio. Head over to, don't let anybody see you. Head over to the Dancing Minstrel. Grab Marcellus Scipio so that we can make contact with the Sapphire Sky. Maybe we can hand this problem over to the Sapphire Sky. Ask them what to do. Now we're getting into what I would consider some real modern Dungeons and Dragons, where the players have now been in Capital so long. They've made enough contacts. They know enough people. They still don't have a map of the city. I wish they did. They don't have a good map, I don't think. I think that would make things easier for them. But they now know enough people that when they have a problem, they can start sending out their messengers and start leveraging all the work they've done. And for me, that is a highlight of any D&D campaign. And it took us a while to get there, but a lot of stuff happened in the meantime. So yeah, Copper heads out stealthily, heads out the city. It's early morning. It's like just almost 6 o'clock. Goes to the Dancing Minstrel, which is where Marcellus Scipio and now many of the Chain of Acheron folks are staying. And Copper, his cat, Big Cat's not there. She would be too conspicuous. So Copper, just in a goblin with a top hat wearing blood pebble armor, shows up in the inn, and the innkeep's like, what the hell is this? And Copper introduces himself and says, I'm looking for my friend Marcel Scipio. And the innkeep is suspicious. What's a goblin doing in here? That's a strange hat. What's up with you, little guy? Young Master Scipio left instructions that he was only to be disturbed if members of a certain organization came calling from him. What was that organization? And Copper's like, the chain of Akron, and the innkeeper's like, yep, that's you. Okay, yeah, he's on the 3rd floor, gives him directions because there's no numbers on the door. This isn't a modern hotel. It's a medieval inn, and even though it is in the big city. So Copper goes up there, knocks on the door, no answer. Copper tries the door, opens it, the door opens, the smell of alcohol comes out. He can see Marcelo Scipio in bed, twisted up in the bed sheets. There was some discussion briefly about whether or not he might have been murdered and, soaked in alcohol to make it seem like he had died in his sleep or something like that. Anna very quickly is like, oh, he's a college kid. He's basically treating this like his dorm, and he was out partying last night, and that is correct. So Copper wakes this guy up, and at first he's alarmed, and he's like, oh, it's you, it's Copper. And so he's getting dressed, and Copper's trying to hurry him up, and Marcelo Scipio is taking time to put his clothes on and look nice, and he heads over, I think he went over back to the candle shop, and then he and Boots head to the Sapphire Sky. He takes his ring off, and the idea is that anybody who looks at the spinning ring is transported to the realm of the Sapphire Sky. You have to be attuned to the ring to use it. That's something and you have to know the passphrase to become attuned to it. So this is not something somebody can just take this ring from Marcelo Scipio and use it. Only Marcelo Scipio, or a member of the Sapphire Sky, can do this. He flicks the coin, he and Boots go back to the Sapphire Sky, and now we're in that realm where Boots is hanging out, talking to the Vile Silencer in the Sapphire Sky. King and the rest of the Chain of Acheron are in the Candlemaker's shop talking to Angel, and we have this A-plot, B-plot thing, which I quite like. And I enjoy doing. I've gotten to the point in my career where I feel like I'm pretty good at it. And it's mostly just having a sense of the pacing of a scene and knowing when we're in the peaks and the valleys. The players have learned something. Now they're trying to figure out what to do with what they learned, and cutting between those peaks of one scene and the valley of another, so that you're always moving from cool moment to cool moment and you're keeping up the tension. And so that's what we did for the most of the night, was going from the Vile Silencer talking to Boots. The Vile Silencer is the orc commander of the Sapphire Sky, and King talking to Angel. King talking to Angel turned out to be pretty interesting, because as King is relaying to Angel what the hell is going on in Ringwell, Angel is able to put things together in a way that the heroes did not. And this is one of those moments that I wasn't sure about, because the heroes have all the pieces of this puzzle, they just haven't put it together. So I had Angel put it together. Doesn't that kind of remove player agency? Well, only if it doesn't work, right? If the players feel like this is just Matt telling us what to do because we didn't figure out, then yes, it ruins player agency. But again, in my experience, as long as you wait long enough, as long as it's not, Butts, for instance, just spouting solutions to everything as we go, which doesn't happen in my game, as long as you've waited long enough and it feels authentic, then the players like the fact that their agents, the characters they've recruited, the work that they've done to build up the Chain of Acheron and trust Angel, for instance, is paying off. Angel says, wait a minute, there's a God Blind down there. He knows what it's called. They don't. The God Blind is where Lady Violentia is imprisoned. Only psionic powers work down there. Prayers don't work. Arcane powers don't work. Scrying doesn't work. So he says, wait, if Lady Violentia is in a God Blind, he's like, I'm not a wizard. I don't know exactly how those things work. I know you can't scry into them. Do prayers work? Because if prayers don't work, if gods can't see in there, which is why it's called that, if gods can't see in there, can't I just go bag Lady Rosavar, drug her, bring her down here unconscious, and you guys can just leave her in that room and no one will be able to find her? Good question. Good question. So now it's up to Judge. This is the issue. Can gods see in there? Because Angel's certain that scrying doesn't work. Can gods see in there? So Judge casts Augury. Remember last time Judge did this, the answer is either wheel or woe. And Judge got wheel, but misinterpreted as woe. And when you ask your god for help and your god tells you what to do and you ignore your god, bad things are going to happen. So Judge has been operating on one fewer seal than Illriggers are normally supposed to have all this time because of that. And so Judge, I think, was a little bit, okay, I don't know if I want to cast Augury again. But so Anna has Judge cast Augury. Judge asks, what would the outcome for the chain be if we bring Lady Rosavar into the room with Lady Violentia and kill Lady Rosavar? Anna is looking at one of the Gale Force 9 spell cards, which are quite useful, but pretty much like every solution I think we find to this stuff, they don't get you 100% of the way there, because the card text lists the possible options as wheel or woe, or both wheel and woe. And I went, I'm pretty sure there's another option. And so I grabbed the player's handbook, I look it up, I'm like, yep, there's a fourth option. And Anna's like, what? Let me see that. And I showed, she goes, oh, Oh, actually, there's neither is also on here. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, well, yeah, I asked the question and I said, you get back, you definitely have, you sense the presence of Asmodeus, and you get this sense of like, it's hard to put into words, but it's kind of like, and it correctly goes, that's neither. That's neither. He doesn't know. Asmodeus doesn't know what would happen, which sort of indicates that, yeah, whatever happens in the God Blind stays in the God Blind. So this is another option the players have. Take Lady Rosavar into the God Blind and either keep her there for an indefinite period of time or kill her. In either instance, no one will be able to detect what happened to her. There's another option, which only one of the players really knows about. Last week, they found the count of They found the rod of Count Rodar von Glauer. Von Glauer is sort of my version of Strahd. Don't read too much into that. I've never read a Ravenloft anything, so I only know about Strahd what I know via osmosis, right? I just think it's cool to have a classic kind of Transylvanian vampire lord running around your campaign, and Count Rodar von Glauer is mine. And I just made this dude up a couple weeks ago for this rod. But Judge cast Identify on the rod, and I sent Anna a list of everything the rod can do, but it's vague. Identify is not a powerful enough spell to literally list and detail everything the rod can do. It can certainly make the vampiric mists, but it can also charm people and it can dominate people. And I describe this as being, there are limits to this, but you're not clear what they are exactly. You'd have to attune to the rod. And the charm is more likely to work, but is less efficacious. The dominate person is harder to get away with, but it basically means you are driving around this person like they are your personal mech or whatever. And there are other things the rod does. And so Anna is like, I could probably use the rod of Count Rodar von Glauer to this is an offline conversation, by the way, that I wasn't privy to because it happened at a lunch I didn't go to. And Anna's like, I think I could use this rod to dominate this person. And King, who's neutral good, he's the neutral good cleric of a neutral good god, is like, no, I'm not okay with that for a lot of reasons. And this did happen at the table. He's like, for one, you're not only do you serve the chain and Asmodeus, you also have a demon, a very powerful, intelligent demon locked up in your sword. What happens when Judge is wounded and the sword tries to take over and you have the rod? Once again, you have the rod of Count Rodar von Glauer. Good point, I thought. By the way, I had forgotten about Exile, but King hasn't. So yeah, and then Boots said, hey, let me use the rod. And King's like, okay, you can use the rod, but not right now. We're in the middle of something. Let's not dominate this lady. So I thought that was interesting. I definitely thought that was an option. Use the rod of Count Rodar von Glauer to dominate Lady Rosavar. That could solve a lot of their problems. Angel is kind of pestering them, saying, boss, what do you want me to do? If you want me to get her, if you want to bring her to the God Blind, I can go just knock her out. And the players didn't really understand how that was possible. And Angel said, I just got to hope that after everything that happened, she's thirstier than she is eager to report back, and that she's going to stop at a pub, which is plausible. And even then the players were still like, oh, what do you mean? And so I had to explain, like, he's just going to drug her. He's just going to hope that he goes and talks to Leech, and he and Leech have a tete-a-tete. Madadriska wasn't there, so I felt free to. It was also fun for me to occasionally role-play Leech. I enjoy role-playing people's characters because I get more into the role-playing aspect than I think most people do. So it was fun to role-play Leech every once in a while. Leech and Angel have a conversation, and Leech gives Angel some drow sleep poison. The players don't know what poison it is. They're like, oh God, Angel's going to dissolve her flesh or something. But I was like, relax. So Angel's presented some options. I could just go kill her, try to make it look like an accident. Or I could drug her and bring her back, and then you could do what you want with her. Angel's thinking take her down to the God Blind. Judge is like, we could dominate her with the rod. Even if you don't want me to use the rod, Boots could probably use it. And this debate goes on for I don't know how long. A long time. Maybe an hour and a half. And finally, Angel, this is a lot of fun for me because instead of me just prompting Lars to make a decision kind of out of character, I had Angel do it. I had Angel say, what do you want me to do, boss? What are your orders? And King, you could see Lars shake his head and he's like, all right, bagger, go get her. Which was a huge moment for me. This is like, if the chain of Acheron, like Phil made this point, if we just let her go, then what she does is on her and we can deal with that. We can deal with the church on their terms. But if we kill her, that's on us. That's on us. And then we're responsible. And that's true. But Lars didn't say kill her. Lars just said bag her, go grab her and bring her back here. And that set up what I thought was a remarkable twist on the part of the players, a real political thinking, I thought, real for the maybe one of the first times in the series so far. The players really thinking politically the way I sort of expected them to think. Meanwhile, back at the Sapphire Sky, Boots explains what's going on to the Vial Silencer. He maps out Ringwell and shows them what's been going on. And the Vial Silencer has a lot of questions about. He basically wants. He even says, "I wish I could go down there," but everyone, as soon as he says that, everybody in the tower. I think it's the Tower of the Moon is what it is, because there's a moon elf in there. Everybody in the Tower of the Moon. Everybody in that room. Which is the command center of the Tower of the Moon, is like, no, don't, you can't, don't forget what, we don't get into it. But the Vial Silencer really wants Boots to be his eyes and ears in Ringwell. Darengar Vial Silencer, the head of the Order, explains that the W's that the Black Iron Pact used to get into Ringwell that the players cannot follow is almost certainly a wish. She probably had a ring of 3 wishes, which is something the players hadn't been able to put together. He also is pretty certain that the psionic wall that Lady Violentia is behind will come down if you expend enough psionic charges. A normal Gemstone Dragonborn has 4. He's like, it's probably going to take 4 Gemstone Dragonborn to bring that wall down. You had 1. You had Lady Rosevar. She couldn't do it. You need more. I would guess about 4, which means you need 12 charges, which is, not coincidentally, exactly how many charges Slim has in his psionic crystal. So the players are slowly putting together the fact that if Slim burns out his crystal, they can get Lady Rosevar out from behind, not Lady Rosevar, Lady Violentia out from behind the prismatic wall. At which point, it's now up to me to make it so that they want to do that. Now the players understand why. How do we get this lady out of here? Now it's up to me to incentivize them, for which stay tuned. One of the things that happened while King was talking to Angel, by the way, was that Angel said, listen, I can probably get Mud and the Advancers to come out here and remake, basically act. They're not engineers, but they have been sappers in the past. They're used to digging underground. They can't make something that's going to last 100 years, but it doesn't have to last 100 years. We could get them to sort of reconfigure. Angel starts thinking about buying some of the shops across the street because the chain's got like 50,000 gold from all the payouts that they've earned recently. He's like, I could probably buy one of those shops across the street and create another entrance to Ringwell and basically board this whole place up, or like seal up the entrances below so that when Lady Rosevar brings the church, they won't be able to find the place. That's certainly possible. And King's like, yeah, why don't you get started doing that? Or have Mud do that while you are out pursuing Lady Rosevar and trying to drug her. So Boots is talking to the Vial Silencer. The Vial Silencer is telling him about how the prismatic wall works and what it takes to bring down. The Vial Silencer has explained that the Black Iron Pact used wishes to get into Ringwell. And so now we're kind of dovetailing everybody back together. Boots goes back to the candlemaker's shop. The heroes finally get a chance to actually take a long rest. And in the middle of the long rest, they are interrupted when coming and knocking at the door that leads to the alleyway are 2 people they don't recognize who seem a little bit drunk, carrying a third unconscious person between them. It is Lady Rosevar. It's not clear to the players, are these agents of angels or are these actually just random people that somebody said, this woman is passed out, she can't hold her drink, can you take her back home? Here's where she lives, and gives the candlemaker shop. So they show up and they hand this drunken, passed out, drugged Lady Rosevar to the heroes, and Boots does a great job being like, oh, thanks, yeah, you know how it is. And these 2 people are like, what's going on here? This is kind of weird, but whatever, we've got more partying to do. And they leave, and now the heroes have Lady Rosevar, and this is where I think Phil's master stroke plays out, because they put a hood over Lady Rosevar, they bind her so that if she comes to, she won't know where she is. And she won't. And at that point, after much debate and discussion and going around and around, which I was perfectly happy to let happen. Once again, this is just playing D&D. I don't know how interesting it is to watch, but I'm not incentivized to have the players stop debating and discussing in a moment like this where it's really tense. And I felt like it was building to something. And I was right, it was, because Phil finally says, wait a minute, why don't we just give her to the Sapphire Sky? She's drugged and hooded. She won't know we had anything to do with it. We can give her to the Sapphire Sky. Who knows what they can do? Maybe they can fix her. Maybe they can fix this problem so we can continue delving into Ringwell and continue extracting its resources. We've already got this quite nice rod, which we might be able to use against Ajax. Who knows? And this is a minor ward. Who knows what other kind of crazy stuff is down there? Let's just give her to the Sapphire Sky. And that immediately becomes the obvious thing to do. I hadn't thought of that. How could I have thought of that? I didn't know they were going to end up with a drugged, unconscious, hooded, bound Lady Rosevar. I thought they were gonna have to kill her or let her go. So yeah, I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And so I thought I might have given out inspiration for that, because I actually quite like the idea of breaking. We have Orcs Attack, which is one way of breaking the cycle when the players are just going around the drain and not making progress, which is, I think, different than actual debate, which has different points of view and does make progress. So we have Orcs Attack when it's not working. And when it is working, I think when a player says something dope that I think is a good idea, I give them inspiration. And that helps, the same thing as Orcs Attack, that helps break the cycle. And now they're going to go do that. So I don't remember if I gave inspiration for that. I think I did. So the players deliver Lady Rosevar to the Sapphire Sky. And at that point, they are free to go back into Ringwell. I told them that I would give them a cutscene, which I still have to write. I'm about, I think, 3/4 of the way through it. A cutscene explaining what happens to Lady Rosevar once she's with the Sapphire Sky. And the players go back into Ringwell and they go check on Lady Violentia. Now it's back on to me to try to incentivize them to let her go. And I think I did a pretty good job, because the players asked, actually, it was really the players did all the work. What did I do? The players just asked, I don't remember who it was. It might have been Tom. It might have been Anna. Just asked, do you know how to get past that gate? The silver, they used a wish. And Lady Rosevar closed the door afterwards and the seal regenerated. We don't have a wish. There's a key. Do you know how to get through that door? And Lady Violentia said, yes. In fact, there's more than one way through. There's more than one key, I think she might have said. And the players, as far as I know, they just accepted that. I don't know what's happened between the players and Lady Violentia, but I guarantee you I have mixed up people's names in this thing. I apologize, but I don't know what's happened. But now they just believe Lady Violentia. And she says, yeah, and she does, by the way, she does know based on what she saw, because she was with that first team that found the door. She didn't tell them, but she's like, holy crap, I think I know how to get through that door without using a wish. Wow, now the players are super incentivized to let her out. And they slowly begin to realize that they're going to have to basically burn out Slim's crystal. And Phil didn't say no. Phil was like, listen, man, this is the chainsaw, right? I think he might have actually said chainsword, which is a great reference to Talisman and stuff like that. This is the chainsword, man. Are you folks okay with me giving up the chainsword? Because I think his attitude was, if you guys think it's a good idea, I'll do it. And which I loved, by the way. I love, there's a very Chain of Acheron thing to do. And I think one of the most Chain of Acheron things we've seen from Slim, where he was like, listen, if you folks think this is a good idea, I'll do it. And both Slim and Judge were like, two of the three of the most senior officers, they're like, I don't know. I really like the fact that you can do, we did the math, and it's 400 million points of damage every round. So hang on to that idea for a minute. Let's see what we can do. So Lady Violentia has really incentivized them to let her out. They're going to think about it. They go and they explore the rest of Ringwell. They come to a large room. Everything in Ringwell, there are no straight lines in Ringwell anywhere. And Ringwell's not symmetrical. And so they're slowly unveiling the map. I'm pretty happy with the map. I drew it with a compass, and then I gave it to our artist to map it out. I'm pretty happy with it, which I think you saw in the last episode. So this is a big room with a lot of little cells around it of different sizes, and all the doors in here are open. Some of them obviously have been open for a long time, and it's not clear based on the way the dust is built up that they had ever closed and been locked. But one of these doors is a silver door with runes on it that has been opened, and there's a pile of gold that was made molten and then solidified. So it looks like a puddle, but it's not liquid anymore at the base of this door. They've seen this before. It means the seal is broken. This is a minor seal. And there's another doorway, now just an archway, and there was a pile of crystal jade and shards at the bottom. The players had no idea what this meant. The players never figured out, by the way, that this meant some stuff in here escaped. That the jade was once a door, a wall made of jade. They didn't figure that out. And that this door with the silver door was a ruined door, and the seal's been broken, even though they'd found one of those before, and it did mean that something had escaped. So the players are kind of baffled as to what's going on in here, at which point I asked them all to make... I don't remember how I started this. I think it was Copper. I asked Copper to make a wisdom save. He fails, and Copper's eyes dilate, and he looks at Slim, and he mouths, right? And then he attacks Slim. And now it's initiative. The players are like, what the heck is going on? Why is Copper attacking Slim? And the players pretty quickly realize that Copper has been possessed. And Slim manages to, because Slim knows what this thing is. It only takes Slim a minute to realize, because the Gith are responsible for these things. It's a mind killer. Mind killers were once corporeal creatures. They had their own bodies on the astral sea until they were hunted to extinction by the Gith Yankee. And now they only have astral forms. They only have ethereal forms, and they wander between the planes and they possess people. It's basically an ethereal ghost, a ghost that you cannot see. And this was a lot of fun. At the end of the evening, so Slim manages to confront this thing, knows what it is, and uses his Battlemaster ability to frighten the thing. I ruled that worked. I don't think it would have worked if anybody else had done it, but this thing's afraid of Gith. And not only is he afraid of Gith for ancestral reasons, Slim has recognized what it is and called him out. That's a couple of reasons to be afraid. So he leaves Copper's body, and for a moment, Judge gets with his hell sight. For a moment, Judge is able to see this thing. But I made a mistake. You can look in my notes and see. You can't see. No matter how good your perception is, you can't see this thing. It's not invisible. It's ethereal. It is ethereal, and there are only two things, according to the rules, that will reveal it. And one is the spell, See Invisible, because it says it reveals ethereal creatures, and True Sight. Everything else, if you read it, it just says, oh, it foils invisibility, but this isn't invisibility, it's ethereal. So a whole bunch of the players' actions were predicated on the idea that if they could only see well enough, they'd be able to find it. Sorry, that's not how it works. Fairy Fire should not have worked because it reveals invisible creatures, it doesn't reveal ethereal creatures. But then after the players had driven this thing out, first of all, Copper did quite a lot of damage to Slim. I had Copper Tom did a great job playing along. Tom didn't complain once. Copper uses his fireball arrow, one of his 5 magic arrows, on Slim. It hits Slim, damages everybody. Everybody either fails. It's a relatively small room. So now everyone's eaten a fireball, most of them saved. And so now this creature has been scared out of Copper and it's loose. I had all the players, I gave them all cards with their name on it and said, here, fill in your role. Everybody make a wisdom save. I think it was wisdom, might have been charisma. Everybody make a wisdom save, write your results on the card. And I explained to them and they seemed to get it. You are not all being targeted by this. Only one of you is being targeted by this, but I don't want you to know which one of you is being targeted. So I want everybody to make a saving throw and give me your results. And one of the players, the player that was targeted, failed their saving throw, astonishingly, because keep in mind that this creature does not know really who's got good wisdoms, but I do. I often like playing the bad guys plausibly dumb. The bad guys don't know everything the dungeon master knows. The bad guys, if they're smart enough and if they're experienced enough, they can tell that guy's probably a priest. He has a high wisdom. That guy's probably a bard. He has a high charisma, right? Don't target the thief with a dex thing. Even though they don't think in terms of the game mechanics, they certainly know that if you are nimble, you can get out of the way of this. And that thief looks really nimble, so don't use this ability on them, right? They're not stupid. But in this instance, I don't think the mind killer actually knows who in the chain can do what. So it targeted somebody that probably should have, it would have produced one result, but we got another one. And then I handed out papers. This is very like the Changeling. I even said this in my notes. I said, this has happened before in the Chain of Acheron. It may have happened more than once in the Chain of Acheron. And I do feel weird going back to this well again, but I was thinking, what kind of stuff is in Ringwell? This is 100% the kind of things you find in Ringwell. So I felt justified in doing this again. And I handed out pieces of paper, and the paper either says, you are not possessed. And then there's a bunch of text saying, hey, how's it going? This is your friendly neighborhood dungeon master. We don't really have anything to talk about. I just want to make sure that if anybody sees through this because of the light, that there's as much text on your I'm not possessed as there is on the person who got the you're possessed thing, which has a lot of text on it. So one of the players is possessed. One of the heroes is possessed. No one knows which. And now the mind killer, now that it knows there's a Gith in the party who can basically knows what it is and how it works, it's just going to lay low and it's just going to pretend. And the thing is, the mind killer doesn't take over the person's personality or thoughts or memories. It sort of just rides in their brain in the back and can take over if it wants to. So right now it's sort of riding in the back seat of somebody's brain doing nothing. It's going to let them go about their business. And that's where we left it. The players don't know who's been possessed, and there may not be an easy way for them to find out. But I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. That's it, folks. That's a campaign diary. I had a blast last week, even though, as I said, I don't think it's very watchable. And it was a lot of like just waiting to see what the players will do and them looking frustrated and they were frustrated. But we talked about this afterwards. I don't think you folks saw this, but Tom Schmuck was like, that is how it should be. He's like, all that frustration building up. And then when Phil's like, she doesn't know we kidnapped her. She doesn't know she's down here. Let's just give her to the Sapphire Sky. They can take care of this, and they probably can. I was like, that is such an awesome idea. Let's do it. And so yeah, that all their frustration resolved. No one seemed to get angry about the session, even though it was one of those things where I felt like I might have pushed things too far. I might have manipulated the players into push them in this dramatic scenario, which I quite believe in, but that they don't find fun. Based on all the discussions we've had since then, the players had a blast. I'm looking forward to continuing to Ringwell. I think there's only 2 or 3 weeks left in this book 1 of the chain, and then we're going to take a break, and I'm going to prep a bunch of other stuff for the next season of the chain, book 2, and we'll do a bunch of downtime stuff, which you folks will get to see. We'll probably stream it, one-on-one stuff. I threatened to do a one-on-one video, but I said I'm going to wait until we've actually played a one-on-one scenario, and then I can share my design, and you can watch how it happened, and we can talk about it afterwards. I think that'll be a lot better, because it'll be practical and pragmatic. So yeah, thanks for watching. Man, it's been a hell of a past couple weeks. I'm really, really proud of where things are going. We lost some viewers who were like, I'm not interested in the dungeon crawling. Wake me up when it's back to politics. I'm like, this is the most politics we've had, I think. This is crazy. So yeah, we're definitely, by the way, the players are going to start learning what's going on back in Capital. Like these are not two different, it's not like Night Below. These are not 2 different planes. These are not 2 different worlds. The library stuff is happening. The 12 Dragon stuff is going to happen, and the chain's going to get wrapped up in that. We're basically going to have a break between the chain not being able to get past the major seal that leads to the rest of Ringwell, not being able to get through there. That's going to give them some time to also deal with what's going on in Capital. Then they will figure out how to get through there, and we'll go back to Ringwell. That's the rinse and repeat of this. That'll probably happen this time, and then maybe one more time after that. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope that we will see you tonight live on Twitch. We talked about the Patreon. We talked about the Kickstarter coming up. We have these awesome new laser shirts. If you folks are interested in getting one of the new laser shirts, you can buy them and they'll get shipped out pretty soon, I think. If you want to support the channel, thanks for watching. See you tonight. More running the game soon. Fear not. Really good videos are coming, I think, and a lot of other cool stuff. Until next time, peace out.